Hey guys, welcome back to Retail Talks. I am your host, Cody Fitzgerald, and really excited to bring you another episode of Retail Talks. Um, Last episode, if you remember, we went through kind of what we're coining our master classes, and we went through Lululemon. And I'm really excited for this show and really probably the next couple shows because we're going to continue to do these master classes because one of the biggest reasons is, I think it's a litany, but one of the biggest ones is a lot of these major brands that our retail clients sell. They're continuing to invest more and more dollars into direct to consumer marketing. They're continuing to increase their footprint internationally, as well as domestically. And we really just want to bring those heavy hitting statistics and things to think about because I'm kind of a geek and I actually like reading companies' 10K reports, which is their annual report for financial performance, the where they see the business going. And they break down stuff in pretty great detail that you can take a lot from, right? So we're going to continue to bring these master classes. And today, we are going to go over Decker Brands. And Decker Brands is the parent company that owns top brands like UGG and Hoka, which is their top two brands in makeup. I think somewhere around probably 80% of their sales. And then they also own Teva, whoever you asked. We asked a rep one time for Teva, and he said it's Teva. And then Sanuk. So overall, we're going to talk about those brands, talk about Decker Brands, and really just, again, some of the heavy hitting stats from their 10K report and really go through and teach. So one of the biggest things is in comparison to even the brand Lululemon, which only 9% of their sales is done at a wholesale level, the vast majority, around 60-70% of the sales of Decker Brands across those brands is at a wholesale level. So, majority of their sales, the lion's share, is being done through third-party companies, just like you are clients in the retail space. But Decker Brands, across their family of brands, mainly on the UGG and Hoka side, do have 164 retail stores at a global level. So they do have a pretty large footprint, in the grand scheme of things, in their retail business. And next, we'll just kind of dive into a little bit on the revenue side. So in 2022, Decker Brands revenue was about 3.6 billion, a 15% increase over 2022. The reason that is significant is because when you break down their revenue between wholesale and direct to consumer, their wholesale business was 2.1 billion and their D2C business was 1.5 billion. So, about a 60-40 split, between wholesale to D2C. But the growth is 11% on that 2.1 billion over 2022 on their wholesale level and almost 21% on their D2C business at that 1.4 over 2022. So, it's what we are talking about with our clients every single day. You got to use data. You've got to do something to really compete against these bigger brands because if that number grows at 20% every single year versus the 11% for wholesale, eventually that D2C is going to hit that tipping point of a 50% of their business. And they actually had this quote. This is directly from their 10K report. Our long-term growth strategy remains focused on building our D2C channel to represent an increased portion of our total net sales and prioritizing consumer acquisition and experience to sustain strong demand and market positions for our brands. So our long-term growth strategy remains focused on building our D2C channel. It's just these brands, Hoka, I think doubled as a brand. I think they were up 85% year over year in just net sales to Decker Brands, which is a huge number. And when you look at just that D2C number, it's big, right? 20% increase over 2022. It's almost double what their increase was in wholesale. So a lot of stats, a lot of numbers right there. The main thing to take away is they're not slowing down on the D2C space. And like I always say in some of our other podcasts, when somebody buys a product online and you have all their address, their full name, their phone number, their email, all of that information, right? It's so much easier to retarget them than on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, X, Google, whatever it is, YouTube. It's so much easier to retarget them. And think about it, when you have an in-store customer, if you're a retailer watching this, you may not collect any information. You may collect their name, maybe their phone number. But that D2C company, if it's Hoka, if it's UGG, if it's Teva, if it's Sanuk, they're capturing all that information when they buy online. And they're using that to recapture and generate them again with an online sale. That's why those numbers are growing so much. And it's going to be a perpetual thing. I guarantee if you look at next year, their D2C percentage of their business is going to be up probably 30-40%. And their overall growth on the 1.4 billion of the 3.6 they did that was D2C is probably going to be up another 20 to 30%. So it'll be interesting as we sit in December here to see their 2023 numbers or 2020, in 2024, see their 2023 numbers, because this is obviously 2022 that we're looking at versus 2021. So the wholesale side of Hoka is 66% of the business of Hoka is wholesale. So that's a key to remember. 34% when we look at their D2C. Here's the interesting stat, though. That 34% number is up 85% 2022 versus 2021. So it's really interesting when you look at that, because if that's up another 85%, that's going to make the swing to about 50% wholesale versus D2C. And that's in a year. That could be a 16-point swing in a year. And think about that 16% in the marketplace. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that is now not being sold through the retail channel of wholesale. It's a big, big number, because UGG, a more mature brand for them, is 50-50, right? They're 50-50. And you look at that consumer, the difference in consumer that's buying Hoka versus UGG, it's a big difference, right? People are more likely to buy Hokas online versus UGG, so it's going to continue to swing that D2C way. Another really interesting stat, and this is the one we always want to be sure to bring you, is their revenue was $3.6 billion in 2022, like we said, and their marketing expense was $271 million. So when you look at that, that's 7.4% of their revenue was being spent, $271 million on marketing. 7.4. Again, going back to Lululemon, which was 4.1. I think we're going to find that these companies, they invest very heavy into good people. They invest very heavy into great product development. But another thing they invest very heavy in is marketing. And ask yourself, how much are you investing in your marketing? And to fuel the growth of your business. Because think about this. Think about it. If you invested, episode brought to you by Celsius. Just kidding. No sponsorship there. But think about it. If you have $1 million retailer and you want to grow 25% this year, but you're only spending 1% of your dollars on marketing, how do you expect to grow 25%, only investing 1% of your entire revenue on marketing? It just doesn't make sense. And then it begs the question, okay, where are you investing it? Because what is the total return on where you're putting it? If it's only a 2x return where another place you could get 6x, that's a very big difference. Because what if 50% of your marketing was on those things and only get you 2x, right? Versus 50% going to something that's a 6 or 8x or 10x. But 7.4% of their marketing, of their revenue is going towards marketing. So think about that for your business. Another key thing that we saw, and again, this goes to how many ads are you running on Facebook? How many ads are you running on Instagram? The two major platforms that we run on. 54 ads for Hoka right now running, 38 ads for UGG, 120 for Teva. So just across the board, they're running in the neighborhood of over 200 ads, and that's just domestically. That's just in America. They could be running hundreds of ads in all the other countries that they're in. I mean, Hoka and Decker have 20 different countries that they're in offices, and then dozens and dozens of countries that they sell in. 34% of their revenue comes internationally. So, where it's 60 or so percent, 65 or so percent is in America domestically. So that kind of wraps it up for Decker Brands. But again, I just always want to hone in on that 7.4% that it is as a percentage of their revenue going towards marketing. You think about the growth that they had. Their growth in revenue was up 15% on 3.6 billion, so about 500, 600 million. What would they have grown if they kept marketing exactly the same? I think their marketing expenses were up 25% year over year, dollar for dollar. And they're up about 50% since 2020, the year 2020. So over a 3-year period from 2020 to 2022, their marketing expense increased as a percentage of revenue about 50%. So continue to look at how much you're spending on marketing, continue to look how many ads you're running, and continue to understand that you have to use data to fight against the very brands that you sell to help keep people in your store versus going directly to the brands. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to Retail Talks. I'm your host, Cody Fitzgeralds. We will catch you next time where we'll probably do another masterclass on another great retailer. But Decker Brands was fun to research. So, stay tuned for the next one.